I'm very passionate about education and development. So I do believe in terms of social mobility that education is the differentiator. And it's not about academics. Yeah. It's that whole experience, it's developing skills and careers are just so different these days. As long as you're trying your best, I think as long as you're genuine as well. The future is defined by bridging the gap between technologies, IT capabilities, things like blockchain. I think a lot of people worry about technology because they think it will remove jobs for people. You know, they think, okay, well, yeah, we're going to be replaced. You guys are obviously really lucky because you have Abdul Karim, who already was at the forefront of blockchain research. So that's huge. And I have a sense of kind of social justice. And I think that that's probably what drives me. And it drives me both personally and professionally. When I do something, I like to do it really, really well. I'm a perfectionist.
Hello, ma'am. Today we have here Ms.Ruth Francis, who is the Educational Strategy Lead of CILT, and she was a chief guest at the IMS Logistics International Summit and for a graduation ceremony. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Sanju Job Viju. I'm from Pune. I joined IMS as a logistics student last April and I will be graduating this year. I am the class captain of my batch and I was selected as the best manager at the Logstar event, which was conducted by our logistics department.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
My name is Fatima and I'm from Fort Cochin. I hold a position of batch captain where I developed a strong leadership qualities and skills. And apart from logistics, I'm working online as an English tutor.
Oh, brilliant.
And we three of us feel very grateful for this opportunity to be here with you today. Because out of 2,000 students are studying here at IMS and we got this opportunity. We feel extremely fortunate about that and we cherish this in our life.
Oh, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi ma'am, I'm Hansana. First of all, it's an honor to get a golden opportunity to interact with you. After I'm a student, aspiring to be a logistics expert like you ma'am, to make a significant impact in the logistics industry. About myself, I'm quite maverick since I'm learning logistics along with a part-time job. I hail from Alapi, which you might know, a tourist attracted place. Famous for its houseboats, snake boat races, paddy fields. If you're planning to visit Alapi, you will definitely love it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, that sounds fabulous. Oh, it's lovely to be with you. Feel free to, I don't know if you want me to introduce myself. I think you already know a little bit about me anyway. What I would say is that I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as a logistics expert, but as more of an educationalist. However, I think probably from what you've seen as well, I'm somewhat learning the industry too, but I think that makes for a really interesting case study for my job because in learning about the industry myself, I understand what you guys need to know about as well. So I'm sort of learning it along with you and learning it from a global context as well through a variety of different educational providers across the world. So yeah, don't worry, don't think I'm gonna outsmart you on logistics expertise. You may well be the experts in the room.
So I would like to ask the question to you, which while we were researching for this interaction session, we went through your LinkedIn profile, which was very interesting, and we could see that you have a chemistry background.
I do.
So we would like to know what motivated you to change your career from chemistry to logistics.
Well, if you've ever been in a classroom with 20 students with Bunsen burners, acids and toxic chemicals, you may well think, actually, I don't want to do that. It's very nerve-wracking. So I did chemistry teaching as a head of chemistry for about 10 years. But I think what's interesting now is that there's so many more transferable skills. And I think when it comes to, particularly with logistics as well, you need to view it as a career whereby you can take what you've learned from one job and actually transfer it to another one, where in a different sector where you may think actually the natural fit isn't there. And when I was applying for this position, it was really focused on looking for somebody with the education background, someone who understood the holistic experience as well, and somebody who'd worked in global contexts. And I think what you can pick up quite easily, and you'll know this, is knowledge itself. But skills, those are what you gain through your lived experience, your work experience. So it was quite natural for me, I think, to move into something else and to challenge myself. because I can sometimes be a bit of what my family would call a know-it-all. So it's nice to put yourself back in the learning position and try something new.
Ma'am, you have made significant contribution to large educational charity, focusing more on whole school improvement of disadvantaged youth. Can you tell some of the key initiatives that you have taken and their impact?
Yep, absolutely. So that was for a large educational charity. I'm very passionate about education and development. So I do believe in terms of social mobility that education is the differentiator. So with that, it was looking at the school as a whole. So it's not just what's going on in the classroom, it's the leadership, it's the parents, and it's also capacity building. So rather than just me going in, looking at the teaching and learning, speaking with the senior leaders, what we did was I identified teachers and leaders within the school and trained them on what I knew already so that they could continue that work when I left, which I think is really important for any sector as well, is if you're doing maybe consultancy work with a logistics company or a supply chain management company, you don't want someone to just come in and tell you what the problems are and say, actually, that needs to be fixed. You're inefficient here. Let's get rid of that waste there. And then they leave and you have no idea how they did and what they were looking for. What you want to do is you want to ensure that people are empowered within the company to then carry on with that change. So that was very much the approach to whole school improvement as well.
That's very wonderful because I remember that India has also initiated few schemes for disadvantaged youth, such as New Skill Development Mission and Pradhan Mantri Vikas Kaushal Yojana, wherein they focus on youths who want to develop their employability opportunity and market relevant skills for their future.
Yeah, it's completely in line. And like I said, it's not about academics. Yeah. It's that whole experience, it's developing skills and careers are just so different these days. It used to be, so obviously I'm sure with your parents, you would pick a job, a company, and you stay there 30 years, 35 years, you don't move. But now, people are always looking for new opportunities. My family called me flaky. I don't know if you have that word. They expect me to change jobs every sort of 2 to 3 years. I was always changing subjects at school. But I think it's just a very different generation. So yeah, developing those skills for the youth so they can take them wherever they need to go, I think is a perfect social mobility scheme, yeah.
Ma'am, what are some of the biggest challenges you have encountered in your role as Education Strategy Lead and how have you overcome them?
I think I'm still overcoming some of them. So I've been with CILT now for just over 2 years. I think probably the biggest challenge is the scale of the role and not being able to be all things to all people. When I do something, I like to do it really, really well. I'm a perfectionist. Not at home, not in anything else, not in my cleaning or my cooking or any of that, but with my work, I'm a perfectionist. So for me, I've had to stop myself exploring the network all at once. Because every time I sort of, pick up a stone over here, there's more things underneath that I need to look at. So I've had to learn to prioritize so that I don't become overwhelmed. But also so that if I spot a problem, I talk about that problem, I have time to follow up, give solutions, and then follow up on the solutions as well. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is that it's a really big network with very, very different needs. And I can't be all things to all people at once. But that's tough for everybody.
Okay, it's very great to hear you about the challenges you have effectively, you handle it.
I try to handle it. I'm not sure if everyone would say the same thing, but yeah, as long as you're trying your best, I think as long as you're genuine as well, when you try to listen to people's problems, give them solutions, and managing expectations as well. That's a really difficult thing, I think, when you are a people pleaser. And my biggest fear in life is being told off. That's honestly my biggest fear. So I don't ever want to disappoint anybody. So learning to manage expectations right from the start, that's also really helpful. Don't say yes to something if you don't 100% think you can deliver it. Yeah. Exactly.
Ma'am, as you know, logistics is already changing so much with its new technologies. So I would like to know, what are the upcoming trends or innovations do you think will define its future after 25 years when looking ahead to 2050?
I wish I could look ahead to 2050, then we'd really have an edge on any competitor in this market. I think you guys are obviously really lucky because you have Abdul Karim, who already was at the forefront of blockchain research. So that's huge. And I think what the future is defined by is bridging the gap between technologies, IT capabilities, things like blockchain, which usually have sort of sat very separately in the financial sector, and learning to bring those technologies into the logistics and transport industry. I think a lot of people worry about technology because they think it will remove jobs for people. You know, they think, okay, well, yeah, we're going to be replaced. You're not being replaced. What we're doing is we're actually freeing up your time so you can be more creative and more innovative with the things that do require human skill. So I would like to think that over the next 15, 20 years, people will learn to embrace it. And I think once they've seen it and once they've seen that evidence that technology, once embraced, actually allows you to be more creative, and that itself then drives the industry forward, I think that's probably what we'll see. So lots more warehouse automation, autonomous vehicles, probably in more controlled environments, maybe in port operations, something like that. But certainly blockchain and that end-to-end supply chain visibility, I think that's what everyone wants to try and get to at the end of the next sort of 10, 15 years for sure.
What initiatives does CILT have in place to support and develop young professionals in logistics industry?
So we have, one, we have to look at the youth, we have to look at the entry level, because without the entry level, you haven't got leaders. So we have something called Next Generation, which is all for people who are new to the industry. So within that, there's a network of young professionals. So you can have those professional conversations, not just about logistics and transport and supply chain, but really I think probably about the challenges that you face at the start of your career. Because it's not the subject matter, it's not the industry, it's just working that becomes quite stressful. Within that too, you've also got access to mentoring and coaching, which is obviously a huge industry in and of itself, and when done properly is really, really effective. And then we've also got things like webinars that help you to still develop yourself once you've finished your qualifications too. But I think the idea of being a professional, the idea of having a professional network is quite a traditional, old-fashioned idea, you know. I don't know what your parents did, but mine were very working class. But my friends' parents who were sort of financial advisors and accountants, they would always say, I'm going out for a business dinner, you know, and they'd be constantly making these professional connections. And I think maybe younger people, we don't think that we need to do that. We kind of cherish being on our own a little bit more, but there is a strength in a community for sure. So that's really what CILT does, is just give you that access to a community so you can have those conversations.
Ma'am, at our IMS, there are many initiatives to enhance our life-related aspects and employability. What other skills we should develop to make a breakthrough in this industry?
So I think with logistics and transport and supply chain, as with most careers, there are different levels and you have to prove yourself. And I think there takes a certain amount of resilience at the start of your career. There's also something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's the idea of instant expertise. So when you learn a little bit about something, when you're first in your career or you've done a certificate or a qualification, you pick that knowledge up, it makes sense, you're doing really well in it, and suddenly you get this cognitive bias that says you're an instant expert. It happens a lot in teaching, in trainee teachers, and it happens a lot in other industries. So what I would say to be successful is, yes, you've done well in your qualifications, yes, you have studied, but being resilient, open to feedback, and accepting that whilst you have a really strong foundational set of knowledge and skills, there is much more to learn. And I think knowing that that's not your choice, you're not trying to be difficult, you're not trying to be shut down, it's a cognitive bias. I think once you know that as well, it helps you kind of go, okay, that's not me putting a wall up. I need to be open to learn. I need to actively think about receiving feedback so that I can then move up the ladder, learn from other people who've done this a lot longer than me, and then hopefully start to innovate, spot inefficiencies, etc. So that's probably what I would say is you know what you know right now, but you are possibly what we would call unconsciously incompetent in the things you don't yet know. And I think acknowledging that there are gaps and being open to learn from those, from others who've worked in the industry, is invaluable.
Ma'am, that was a good one. I will definitely share with my peers.
Ma'am, you have achieved so much in your professional journey.
Thank you. I shall report that back to my father, who I'm sure would say something very different.
And I'm sure it takes a lot of balance to succeed personally as well. So I would like to hear, what does success mean to you in both professionally as well as personally?
So these sorts of questions always really get me. I mean, I don't know how you guys would even answer that. For me, I'm always driven by, I have a really strong moral code. Like I said, I don't like being told off. I like to do things that are right and wrong, and I know the difference. And I have a sense of kind of social justice, and I think that that's probably what drives me, and it drives me both personally and professionally. So if I feel like I am making a difference and I have added something, that's enough for me. So be that professionally or personally. If I think that I have nothing good to add, nothing of value, which will feel ironic now, but I will not say anything, because I'm open to learn. As long as I think I can make a difference, I will contribute. If I'm not making a difference, I will be quiet until I've learned enough to then contribute and make a difference. So it's all, for me, it's all about making a difference, and probably just cooking for my family. It's nice. I like to feed. That makes me happy, and I think just enabling others as well, through love or through career, and seeing people flourish, that really makes me happy too. So I don't know if I would say I'm successful as yet, but certainly that's what drives me.
Yeah, ma'am. I also believe that success is not about reaching a destination. It's also about learning and growing throughout the journey.
Yeah, for sure. I do not know everything. Please don't ask me anything about history or geography. Absolutely zilch.
So ma'am, I was a part of IMS Global Summit, which was in a form of mock United Nations.
I saw the brochure. Yeah.
So I was the delegate of USA in logistics. So while preparing for it, I got to understand the logistical stand of USA, and it opened my eyes to variety of opportunities. So as someone who is exposed to global platform, what are your expectations from students entering global industry?
So expectations from students, I think, as I said, don't think that you know everything to start with. The beauty of the logistics and transport industry is it's massive. I think you, having already learned about innovations that are happening elsewhere, is really, really useful. So that natural curiosity. Don't leave your learning just at your certificate and then you're done. That's just silliness. Continue to be curious, continue to look to other cultures, because when you get into the working world, a lot of people who are working maybe don't have time to read and research, and they're not in that kind of, in the learning methods that you've already had. You're still in that learning space and you haven't yet fully transitioned to, I just work now and I don't learn. So what you've got is that natural curiosity, you've got the built processes to still learn, kind of still ongoing. So continue to do that, and honestly just talk your employer's ear off about what they could possibly do. The ideas may not work, they may already have thought of them, but at least it shows that you are consistently thinking about that business, how to make it better, how to change things, and how to globally compete. Which, let's face it, when you work in supply chain, nobody really cares just about the area that you're in, because that's just stupid. You need to consider the bigger picture. So I would say, yeah, talk to them, give them ideas, and see if some of them stick.
Thank you.
Ma'am, what is the most rewarding part of your role as Education Strategy Lead at CILT International?
Well, obviously meeting students is definitely, I'm really lucky. I get to kind of come out and travel, which is lovely. Ordinarily, I was saying to some of the management team, I do not normally look like this. I normally sit behind a laptop in my office at my home in the Midlands, and I don't get to meet people apart from on Zoom. So it's really lovely to actually build proper relationships. I think that's the most rewarding part. We were just talking over lunch about Business, yes, business is changing, but business has not changed that much. The value of coming and meeting people and giving people face time, there is literally no substitution for that. Texts, emails, even Zoom calls, it's good, but it's not a substitute for true interaction. So for me, getting out, meeting people, speaking to young people, previously as a teacher, obviously, I believe in education. So it's wonderful to actually come and see the fruits of your labour and how successful you're going to be. So yeah.
It's our honor too, ma'am, to interact with you and take insights from you.
Oh, well, I would take them with a pinch of salt. Some may be good, some maybe not so good.
Okay, ma'am, as women entering into the career of logistics, what steps you can recommend to improve gender diversity and inclusion?
So it's not just a logistics thing, I will say that right away. Gender and development is a very complex topic. In terms of research, so having looked at this in my master's, it's a fairly new area as well. We're talking sort of really the last 20 to 30 years. So I don't expect the logistics industry to have all the answers. So I would say there's some more generalistic stuff that certainly needs to be accommodated and progress needs to be made. The idea of equality versus equity. So it's not just about offering more jobs to women and saying, oh, well, we have 50% women. It's about actually equality versus equity. Equity is equal opportunities and the resources needed to then get the most out of that opportunity. So for women, obviously, if you've got household duties, family commitments, childcare, etc., making reasonable adjustments and allowing your women workers the framework that they need to then still succeed, that sort of conversation needs to happen. Now that's going to be very, very slow. That's going to be really slow. And we're still working on it in the UK and in Europe. But on the flip side, what I would say is women can do a lot for themselves. Obviously women can do a lot for themselves and a lot for men as well. But for women and men, there's a really big difference. And I learned this in my first job. At Goldman's, we used to do a 360-degree review, which is where you get feedback from literally 360 degrees. Your managers above you, people that you have in your team below you, people that you work side by side with, 360-degree review. And I was told, before I went in to receive my feedback, I was told, right, remember the difference between men and women. If you go into this and they give you 9 positives and 1 negative, as a woman, you will come out and you will remember the 1 negative. Man goes in, 9 negatives, 1 positive. He just remembers the positive. Men are so much better at advocating for themselves and what they are good at. Women, we tend to be a little bit quieter about it. And it's not about saying that you're brilliant at everything, but it's about singing about the strengths that you have. So for me, like I said, I never want to pretend that I know something I don't. That I don't believe in. But if I can talk about something that I can do and I can do really well and then I can deliver it, that builds trust, it builds interrelational trust with the people in your company, and then they'll start giving you more things to do so you can start to develop yourself. So don't put yourself down. And ultimately, I don't think society will advocate for us the way they advocate for men naturally for many, many, many years. So we have to do it for ourselves. So sing about what you can do.
I'm really curious to ask you, because your role as an education strategy lead is truly an inspiring one. So I really aspire to follow a similar path like yours, to build my career like yours. So what would be the key steps or advices that you recommend me to build my career like yours?
Oh, I don't know if you want to do what I've done. As I said, my family says I'm flaky. So I think it's transferable skills. I think lots of people worry about being pigeonholed, particularly so with teaching. Teachers are highly skilled professionals, but they can't really see what they could do with the skills that they've already learned and where they can take them. And thankfully, I never felt pigeonholed like that. I recognised, having worked in industry before, that actually I did have things that could be used elsewhere. So I would say, don't just narrow your sights on your previous job title. That's one thing. Never narrow your sights. Don't be afraid to say yes to something. Don't necessarily say you can do it if you can't do it. Don't say that you already, but say, I will learn. Do you know what? I've got resilience, I've got problem-solving skills. I did something sort of similar, it's not quite this, but you know what? Give it to me, give me 2 weeks. Let me see what I can do. Being open to that. Careers are difficult in terms of building networks. That's a really important thing as well. And when you leave somewhere, that's one thing I would say, is when you leave a company, you leave the company, you don't leave the people. Yeah. Keep the people with you. I am actually really lucky that I think pretty much every job I've ever had, my bosses are now my best friends, my old bosses. And that's not because it's useful for me in business, but it's you work harder for people that you love. So when you ultimately become a manager or a leader, having that emotional intelligence to build true, genuine, authentic relationships, people will want to work harder for you. So hopefully there's some tips there. I can't say they're necessarily the active ingredients of success, but they worked for me. But I'm sure, having spoken to all 3 of you today, that you will all be very successful.
Thank you.
It's truly an inspiration to me, and I hope that someday I become like you.
Thank you very much.
Like we can keep these keynotes and implement it when we are in our like workplace.
Absolutely, absolutely. Work is, they say do what you love and you never work a day in your life. I always think that's a bit aspirational. You can't love everything about work. That's the other thing I would say. There's some dull stuff. Learning how to be bored and work through the boredom to get to the things that you find rewarding. Also a very, very key thing. Don't expect to love every single second of your job. Yeah, look at the big picture.
Ma'am, if you could change one thing in the educational sector of logistics, what would it be?
I think seeing logistics as a profession. Professions, generally the research around professions, most of us would say, you know, professions are accountancy, law, medicine, engineering, teaching. Most people, most children would not say, oh, I want to be a logistician. I want to be a transport manager. That is a profession. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing I want to change about the way in which the profession is seen. And education is a fantastic way to do that because professions are built off a shared ethical framework. So I know we don't have the Hippocratic Oath, but I think what we do have is we're working for the global community. And I think people are always innovating in supply chain. So that's sort of a shared ethical code. We are fulfilling a societal need because without supply chain, logistics, transport, nobody gets anything. You know, communities grind to a halt, global economy grinds to a halt. You've got skills that you cannot just pick up through your lived experience, and you've got a body of specialised knowledge. So arguably, you are educating yourselves in that body of specialised knowledge and specialised skills. You are professionals. So I think for me, it's changing the narrative around logistics and transport generally and helping people to see it as a profession. Because then you build that intrinsic value, more people want to do it, more employers start to value it as well, and they actually say, hang on a second, I really do need somebody who's qualified to take that job on. Like I need somebody doing big data analytics for a transport planner. You're not going to be able to find them without the education that we have. But I think that's probably my largest thing is shifting the narrative around what professions are so that you, I know you feel the value of what you've learned already. But it would be nice if the global community all came together and children in school started saying, I want to be a logistician. Yeah. You know, that would be fantastic.
Yes, ma'am. That would be a remarkable change.
Yeah.
And on a light note, I would like to ask you, did you enjoy Kerala? Did you like it?
So I've just seen the water. I didn't even realise where all the water was. Like I said, geography is not my strong point, nor is a sense of direction. So passing over the waterways and seeing the backwater, absolutely stunning. It's my first time in India generally. So I think Kerala is a fantastic place to come. Everyone's been super warm. I had spicy food. I love the spicy food. So yes, I feel very at home here. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Do you have any favorites in Kerala cuisine?
Ooh, anything really spicy. I tried the rice bread. like a paratha, but the...
Paratha.
Appam?
That's, yes.
Okay.
That was the first time I tried. Very nice. Light. I liked it. Yeah, very, very
Fish
nice.
curry, it's very spicy.
Yeah, and I've had this, I had spicy curry and then anything with paneer. Yeah, paneer all day long. Yeah.
So ma'am, could you share your experience after attending today's IMS International Logistics Summit?
Oh, well, like I said, I want everyone around the world to see this as a profession, and for children and families and, you know, bossy parents to say, well, you can be an engineer, you can be a doctor, or you can be a logistics and transport expert. Those are your options. I think seeing, one, the number of people there today, two, the grandeur and the gravity of what it is that people have achieved. And I think making you feel like it's a true graduation ceremony for what is a very difficult topic with specialised knowledge and specialised skills. That felt really wonderful. I mean, you know, God help the logistics and transport industry with so many students coming, you know, that's fantastic. It's going to develop so quickly. I think that was probably my overwhelming sense today, was the numbers, the volume, and ultimately the impact that all of the students can have.
So it's wonderful to have you here, ma'am.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to to have an interaction section with you.
Oh, that's very kind. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Enjoyed every bit of it.
Oh, thank you. You've been brilliant.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.